our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We gather together here today intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by the understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faiths give us strength and act honestly and well in all matters before us. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor. And at this point, I'm going to ask, are there any changes to the order of the agenda? Seeing none, then we're going to move to pecuniary interest or conflict of interest. There are two that are named. Councillor Rayner has a conflict with item P 108-19. Councillor Rayner declared the conflict with respect to that report. PD 158-10, it's a recommendation report regarding C-card holiday campers. Councillor Trombetta declared a conflict with confidential item P100-19, and it's with respect to an LPAT appeal application for rezoning. Are there any other pecuniary or conflict of interest?
Mr. Mayor, with regards to the bylaws read on them, I believe some of them are included in the bylaws. Will they be pulled and read separately then for the conflicts?
That would be the intent if that's the case. Although, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Yes, sorry, I did not segregate bylaw 2019-104, which is the C-card bylaw. So we will have to remove that from the list and vote on it separately due to the Councillor Rayner's conflict of interest. And I think there's others that it's not a conflict of interest, though, that he would like to vote it on separately as well.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys are going to give the clerk a real workout tonight. She's up for the challenge. See how she does. Are there any other conflicts? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, we are at the point where we have members of the public who wish to address a specific item on this agenda as permitted by Section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw. Are there any members of the public who wish to address one of the items that are on the agenda? Seeing none, we move to appointments, and there are no appointments or presentations this evening. So we move on to Councillor Witteveen, Regional Councillor remarks.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, just wanted to make sure I was on. So thank you, Mayor, and welcome so members of council. I would like to start by sharing some information from an agriculture policy action committee which I chair at the region. A policy brief which was produced by Charles Contact, which I'll share here, called Niagara's Agribusiness Sector Towards More Resilient Innovation Cluster, was generated, and this brief was supported by the region and Brock University. So I'm bringing this to your attention because I believe there's opportunities for West Lincoln through innovation, productivity, and job creation in our strong agriculture base here. So I would like to pass this on to our consultant who's working with us on our strategic plan for this term of council, as we discuss a possible, and we discussed at the meeting, possible a agribusiness strategic planning working group under the umbrella of the APAC, just so that work that's been done, recognizing the strength of agriculture here in Niagara, and there would be interesting to have it included in our strategic plan as we move forward. Another item that came up at this meeting was the challenge with Phragmites. Many of you have seen this in our wetlands and that some of the challenges are restricting our drainage and roadside ditches. So Niagara-on-the-Lake's kind of taken a lead on this invasive species to manage their agriculture irrigation system, and they've developed a bylaw in which gives the tools to control this species that's been identified. And we're going to look at this to present this bylaw and have it adopted region-wide. And it's a proactive approach in controlling Phragmites. It's increasingly growing and growing, and it's choking out our wetlands. And so we're just trying to be proactive here in Niagara before it becomes, out of hand. And I think it kind of is, and it's just trying to get some type of control on it. So with that, on October the 8th, I attended a Public Works Committee meeting, and a high-level overview was our extension of our contract with the MRF, the Municipal Recycling Facility, till 2024, or till full producer responsibility kicks in. And we've also extended a contract with Waterloo because we also process their blue and gray box material for extra revenue at our recycling facility. So when we received updates on the progress of the regional transit expansion, mostly to do with the governance of transit. There's 3 different transit authorities in Niagara, and there's working towards the amalgamation of those. And we also had an update on the Burgoyne Bridge barriers that we wanted to reinstate there, and we're just waiting for the MTO approval on regarding wind and ice safety for the motors that travel underneath the structure. That afternoon, I've joined a Public Health and Social Service Committee so that, it can bring information back to our community on those things. And I know trying to share in the responsibility with our mayor and covering the bases there. And I have an interest in basically public health and social services. So that way, we could have a voice at that table. And it's kind of interesting because in some ways our communities is somewhat isolated. We have needs in our community, but not as great as needs as the cities do. So their biggest challenge, and of course they're part of the greater Niagara, is just the cost of homes and the rent increases throughout the region displaces people that are on fixed incomes. And so there's some good programs. We had a presentation by RAFT, which I was looking for what the acronym is, but it basically is a focus on youth of all ages, and it helps them become independent, self-sufficient in our community. So kind of another, I guess, a higher level or in the same world as FORT. It's creating that youth and helping them in our communities. And this organization's really helped the individuals to keep them from living on the streets. It stabilizes them in the community and through their schools, and it's been highly successful with that. So it's something we can tap into. And for adults, if we have concerns in our community, they have a Southridge shelter, which is a 24/7 emergency hostel and community refuge for those without a home. And we can, like I said, we could tap into these resources if we know of any needs in our community. And through that, we had a presentation of the 5-year review of the 10-year housing and homeless action plan. So many partners are engaged, government, nonprofit, and private sector. So just some brief, here in Niagara, we have 22 funded homeless providers and 62 nonprofit co-op housing providers with our own facilities meeting the people's needs. So just kind of trying to help you understand what goes on in other parts of the region that, we can kind of sometimes say, we're not dealing with these things, but these are things that our challenges. So some of the outcomes of this review, just a quick overview, was to improve access to shelters and housing for those experiencing unsheltered homelessness, and to reduce the time spent in emergency shelters before they find more stabilized living and improve the situation and availability. So interesting, the report also says we're in need of 23,000 placements here in Niagara, primarily one-bedroom units. So that's when we talk about a housing crisis and affordability, it's the fact that we lack that part of our housing picture, is that those one-bedroom type rental units. A lot of things have been built in the last 10 years are condominiums. There hasn't been a lot of product in the rental. So that's a challenge, and that's something that I believe that we in the region are working towards finding workable solutions, creating those one-bedroom units needs. And of course, you know, the biggest thing is not to lose what we already have in our community. And then the one that you probably left the best for last. So on October 17th, we had a special meeting to discuss our new garbage collection contract. And as you know, we agreed at the region upon every other week collection, moving towards our next 7-year contract. You know, motivation was the one bag. In one bag, our Director of Public Works showed that we're still seeing 50% organics, 36% garbage, and 14% recyclables out of a full container going to the curbside. So to try to, I guess, motivate to pull them organics out of the garbage and to meet our the province has set guidelines and challenged us for diversion of 65%, and we've been stalled for the last 4 years at around 55%. So this will help us in reaching those diversion targets. And of course, plenty of discussion took place and concerns were addressed, and staff reassured us they're going to step up their outreach program to help the residents through this transition. But the new contract, when all said and done, won't start till October 2020. So that is my report, and thank you, Mayor and Council. If you have any questions, I'm available to answer them best of my ability.
Okay, so I saw Councillor Rayner, then Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Woodavine, thank you for your presentation. The regional garbage pickup obviously is a big concern. There's quite a write-up in the paper that I have here about it, and it says basically that the change, which was approved October 17th, will apply to garbage collection for industrial, commercial, and institutional properties. So that means the agricultural sections will still be once a week?
No, I don't believe so. The only thing that will be every week will be our BIA, our DIA, or our downtown core area. That will be right now I believe it's a twice-a-week pickup here in the town of Smithville. So it will be that will be a weekly pickup. But IC&I, industrial and commercial, is a separate from residential collection. So IC&I would be a fee for service. Or
The reason I ask that is because the agricultural sector are allowed 7 bags per week. The residential are allowed 4. The agricultural section was separated on garbage pickup day. And if you had a farm, you could put 7 containers out. So this did not specify agriculture, so I was assuming that maybe agriculture was exempt. I don't know how you were going to do that. I know the majority of this was for the highly populated areas in Niagara, but the farming community is a separate issue from that. So I didn't see agriculture mentioned at all with regards to garbage pickup, but agriculture is not commercial, nor is it institutional, and it certainly isn't residential, although residential is part of the garbage that goes out from the farm, but the farm is allowed extra because of things on the farm that would increase their garbage. Is that being addressed?
I will look into that. At this point, we're still working through details of the contract. I will get that information and get back to you, Councillor Rayner.
Thank you. Further to that, you're quoted with every other week collection. It was proven by other regions in and around the GTA that this choice was successful in achieving diversion goals. Diversion goals are something that we're concerned about in the country, and when my wife read this, the first thing she said was, oh no, we're gonna get more garbage in the ditch. Every time the region does something, either increases the tipping fees at Regional Road 12, because I sat on that board for 2 council terms, as you know, I believe I sat on one when you were also an alderman. Anytime that happens, the diversion happens, but it's not the diversion that the region talks about, I believe, in making this decision. The diversion is put it in the ditch as you drive down the darkened roads out in the countryside. So this situation, has that been discussed? You said there were some problems and concerns in the discussion before they approved this. Was the diversion to the ditches part of this discussion?
Definitely, illegal dumping through transition is always seen a little uptick, but there is a program in place, like a Crime Stoppers, that you can call, but I'm sure that the staff and those will, that will be addressed through the initiation of the new contract.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO, in the past, when there has been garbage dumped in the township of West Lincoln Properties, you called Public Works and they sent somebody out with a pickup truck to pick it up. I believe that process has been changed and I think it's for the better, except I'm concerned because it's now under the regional auspice, and that gives me a little bit of concern. But if you call now, I hear that it goes to the region first, because the region will actually go there and take the garbage apart and try to identify the owner. Is that the case now? Is the township not picking up the garbage, and anytime you call from now on, you have to call the region?
Through you, Mayor Bilsma, to Councillor Rayner, I believe that's the case. I have to actually do some checking on it. But right now, we have been getting a number of phone calls about garbage collection, and we have been directing all of those through directly to the region's sort of hotline or customer service line so that they can track all that information. And specifically with respect to the garbage that is in the ditches, I understand that the region will be doing that, and I do know that in other places they do an audit of the garbage and try to track down the perpetrator, so to speak, and figure out how to deal with those issues.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Woodavine. Is it possible, Councillor Woodavine, for the next meeting, can you bring what hopefully will be a hotline number? Because I anticipate that the result of this decision by the region may be beneficial to what they're trying to do with regards to recycling, but with regards to the concerns about keeping the countryside nice and neat, this is absolutely in the wrong direction, and this is only going to make it worse. And there's going to be a lot of phone calls, and I'm sure Councillor Trombetta and I are going to get a lot of calls as to who to call. And I don't want to see the township inundated with calls if the township's responsibility now is not to pick up that, but it's the region. So we need somebody on top of this, because I've already got stuff dumped on Caister Center Road 3 days ago. But that's not because of this. That's just once in a while we do get dumpage. If you could be kind enough to bring that, I'd appreciate it, because I'm sure it's a number of people are going to have to keep by their phones for a while. One other question, Mr. Mayor, if I can. Councillor Woodavine, you're also quoted in the paper as saying, while the frequency will be adjusted, residents will be able to put out the same number of bags, however. Now, I assume by you mean the frequency adjusted, meaning going from 1 week to 2 weeks. But you said residents will be able to put out the same number of bags, however. Well, the same number of bags to me is, if a resident is putting 4 bags a week out, then if he's going to do it every 2 weeks, then he should be able to put 8 bags out. I'm not sure how to read this, because this is not a clear statement. We'll be able to put out the same number of bags. What, the same number of equivalent bags, because you can now double it because it's every second week, or you're only allowed 4 every two weeks? Can you clarify that, please?
Yes, I can. I can clarify that. My understanding is each resident is allowed 1 container. It's not a bag, it's a container a week. So if you go to every other week, you're allowed to put out 2 containers every other week.
So they now can double up.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay, that's important. Now, the biggest thing I've got is regards to the cost of this. Obviously, there's cost savings associated with this. The region takes 54% of our tax dollar, and those of us who live in the country don't get a lot of return from that investment, because the region doesn't do a lot for us out in the country. One of the only things that we have that we can say is the region picks up our garbage. Most of the roads around our area, the municipality looks after it. This appears to be taking away just about the only thing we got left to justify in our minds who live out in the country, 54% of our tax dollars going to Thorold. Will there be, you say there's an increase in cost for wages, fuel, and all the rest of the stuff, but when they're negotiating, will there be the possibility that the offset savings in this could be corresponding to a considerable reduction in the region's budget tax increase for next year?
Honestly, no.
So there's no gain to the taxpayer on this except inconvenience, smelly garbage in your garage, and the region doing something else with the money that they've saved.
Well, there is a, if I could respond, the collection contract is given out every 7 years. So the price of the contract was negotiated approximately 8 years ago. From that point in time, as you know, cost of fuel, cost of labor, cost of capital investment have gone up. That's where we're going to see an increase at the region is in that contract. By going every other week is an opportunity for us to save on that increase. It's going to cost us more to collect garbage for the next 7 years, but every other week gives us an opportunity to shave that increased cost. And I understand where you're coming from, Alderman Rayner. I also live in the country, and I just want to explain to you the motivation is we have an opportunity every 7 years to try to improve what we do as people. And if we continue to do what we're presently doing, we have made no improvements and nothing can change for another 7 years. If what's going in that bag can be organics and it can be separated, then this is the time that we can encourage people to try to do better. You're a farmer like mine, I am, and we're environmentalists. We look after the land, and this is our opportunity to make a difference and keep that garbage, which can be separated and processed and recycled into organics, which are basically broken down and then reused as soil and enhancers, is going into a landfill site, filling a hole, is not really a responsible thing to do. So I think, as humans, we try to do better as we move through life. So this gives us an opportunity. And yes, I understand that 54% of our tax dollars go to the region. Does that mean that we can, that we should just be able to put out whatever we want at whatever cost just because we believe that there's value to waste? And so I understand your challenges, just like myself. I only get garbage picked up once a week, or will be every other week. But this is our opportunity at this time to up our habits, to try to pull more of the waste that can be reused in a circular way, and extend the life of our landfill site. As you understand, Councillor Rayner, that landfill site on Region Road 12 had a 25-year life expectancy. And now it has well over 45 years of life expectancy left. And that wasn't just doing what we did 25 years ago. We've changed our ways and we've improved those ways, and we're using those resources better. We have one of the cheaper disposal fees in the region here in Niagara because we've been stewardly with our resources. So we've already proven this is the direction we're going in, and this is just following that direction of being more stewardly with what we have. So that's my, I guess, rebuttal to you, is that we have a societal responsibility to do things better.
All right, good, thank you. Then I had Councillor Rayner, Councillor Trombetta, then over to Councillor Cody.
You meant me, right?
Sorry, Riley. Okay, sorry, Riley, Trombetta, and then Cody. Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you. To you, Mr. Mayor, to Regional Councillor Whitterbean, again, thank you. Councillor Rayner kind of covered a few things I was going to go over. So one thing he didn't ask was, has the region considered piloting this idea? So instead of just jumping into it, have they considered, or was it even suggested that they could look for a few communities to kind of test run this? Because my biggest concern is that as much as I'm for reducing waste and hoping to put waste in the right places and the importance of that, I worry that you're going to have a situation where some people are going to do it and some people are not going to do it. And as a result, the neighbors who are around the neighbors who are not doing it are the ones that are going to be punished. And I feel like this approach is a punishment because if they don't do it, they're going to attract rodents, or they're going to attract more flies, or they're going to attract not just the smelly odors, but the inconveniences that come with it. So again, I feel like this is an excellent idea. I'm just a little concerned that it hasn't been piloted or enough information to show that this is actually going to work, that this isn't just going to put neighbor against neighbor.
So in response, Councillor Riley, the region staff had researched, I believe, 6 regions in the GTA: Halton, Waterloo, Durham, Barrie. They have all been at every other week pickup for a number of years. And at the beginning, there was a bit of a learning curve for everybody, but through good outreach program and education, that everybody basically adopted the new ways and basically they met their diversion targets through that. So there's no need to pilot when 6 other regions have done it successfully, and so that's the example that staff had drawn from and making the recommendation. Some are further advanced than even that, where they go in the clear bag, where they, there's more advancement in it. This is, for us, this is another step in that direction.
So through you again, Mr. Mayor, like you say clear bag, and again, I know we were, everyone was concerned about the clear bag, but in all honesty, at least in my opinion, I would rather see clear bag once a week than be forced to put 2 bags out every 2 weeks. Because the other concern we're going to have, and I know I'm not the only one that's going to have this, is that once, I'm assuming now we're going to have twice the amount of trucks on the road every 2 weeks because it's twice the amount of garbage. In theory, to some capacity, they're going to need to make up that volume. Right now in a current contract, they can't even pick up 1 bag a week, never mind 2 bags every 2 weeks. So what happens when somebody doesn't get out early enough, because the trucks have to start a little bit earlier to ensure that they can get all the routes. And so if they miss it, now they're not missing it for 2 weeks or a week, they're now missing it for a month. You know what I mean? And so that's where the problem starts to snowball, waste-wise, and then, like, I agree, education is everything, but I feel like this is just a little too soon. So I don't think, as much as it may have worked in other areas, I'd love to see other ideas come forward before committing to something. And I know full well, I went and watched the video online, and I don't think it's a big deal to put you and the mayor on the spot here. I know you guys supported this motion, and like I said, like I understand the merit of it. I just don't like the way how it's kind of being forced on us the way it is. I think 1 year is not enough time. I don't care what you guys say. I think this is something that we need to talk about and get more regular. But you're expecting people just to, like, I forget the remark I read from one regional councillor saying that people will resist it at first, but over time they'll see the benefits of it. But again, it's going to pin neighbor against neighbor because not everyone's going to comply. And so again, I don't think. I guess I would rather see some other measures come forward and educate people than just forcing the 2 bags every 2 weeks, because I think there's just too many potential issues that are going to result from it. So,
Thank you. I don't know if there was a question in there, it was more of a comment, but
well, I was just making more of a statement,
yeah.
I guess.
Okay. Councillor Trombetta?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few comments as well to this. Thank you, Councillor Woodavine, for your presentation. It's very informative. I'm not in support of, obviously, the garbage every 2 weeks, and with all due respect to both our regional representatives, you guys knew about this beforehand, and we're hearing it like everyone else as council, so we all feel a little sandbagged by it. You guys discussed this at regional council. All due respect to you, Councillor Woodavine, you're not here. You're here once a month. But the mayor's here every week, and he had no audacity to mention it to any members of council, which I don't know why. He had every opportunity to mention it, but we found out like everyone else in the paper or on the radio on the way into work or whatnot. So with all due respect, I think it's appalling that we find out this way. So obviously we have a lot of questions tonight. Again, no offense to you, Councillor Woodavine, you're here once a month. I think this is just going to be an implication of cost on the township. There's going to be illegal dumping. Our fire chief's going to be coming out more often for fires because people aren't going to keep the bags for 2 weeks, especially if they have a party and there's more garbage. They're not going to try to keep it for 2 weeks. They're going to burn it in the backyard. Those hot summer days, with the flies, like Councillor Riley said, people are just going to get rid of their garbage. They're not going to wait for 2 weeks. And I've consistently complained about the garbage pickup because we're lucky to get it picked up. I've had to call multiple times. I've even called you, Councillor Irving, and stated, hey, my garbage not picked up. You've been more than supportive of how to deal with the issue. That's no question about that. But I think to both of you, and especially the mayor as well, you know, your slogan, Mr. Mayor, said, I'm in touch, but I don't think you're in touch with what's really going on in the rural areas. I think this is a cost-cutting measure that's been forced upon us, a cost-cutting service that's been forced upon us. And I think that we have nothing out in the rural areas. Garbage pickup was one of the essential services we have, and now it's been taken from us. And I feel that this is not going to save any tax dollars. This is going to increase tax dollars. But like I said, our services are going to be going up. Our public works department is going to go out more often. Our fire chief's going to have to attend to more fires because people are burning illegally and burning things that they shouldn't be burning. And both of yous, I don't understand how you voted, why you voted in favor of this when I know a majority of my residents are not in favor of this. So I'd like to find the reason why you both voted for this. You're saying in the paper that it was a tax break on the residents, but then you turned and said tonight that it's not a tax break. So I'd like to find out why both of you decided to support this one. I know, and you've been here just as long as I have. You've been here a long time too, Mr. Mayor, and you both know that we don't, our residents wouldn't be supporting this. We both know, and you've also alluded to the problem with the rats that we're having in this municipality, Mr. Mayor, and you've alluded to help solve the problem. I think you've just added to the problem with the rats, with the every 2-week garbage pickup. So I'm confused why both our regional representatives voted for this. Well, we have other mayors, as Didi Odati, who's in a big city, who didn't vote for this. So please answer me these questions and why you thought West Lincoln is deserving of this.
Certainly, I will, well, you know what? I'm going to take this one because you did address me, and I'm just going to give Councillor Woodavine, he can answer for himself, and he's done a remarkable job of answering for himself and answering to the sentiment in the room. And certainly, Councillor, you are entitled 100% to your opinion. And you've expressed it quite clearly. And I hope that I have, you know, entitled to an opinion too, because there are people in your ward who don't think the same way that you do. So,
Sure.
So we understand that you're talking in generalities, as are Councillor Woodavine and I. We're taking an evaluation of the entire community, not just, of course, Ward 1, but we take into Wards 3 and 2 as well. I think part of the, and Councillor Woodavine did a bang-up job of addressing cultural change, okay? Change, you know as well as I do, people don't change very easily. There's usually a lot of hue and cry, but the reality is, you questioned my slogan, in touch. I think actually people who refuse to change are the ones that are out of touch. Our culture, and this is driven by young people at environmental rallies, this is driven by increased floods, erosion, the wear, increased infestations of bugs. We understand that our environment is in a state of change, and being good stewards is something that we cannot overlook anymore. Councillor Rayner, you're well aware that before landfill 12 was a landfill, it was a farm. And so the reality is landfills go on agricultural land. Very rarely, especially in this day and age, do they go in quarries anymore because there's other implications. So generally speaking, when we landfill things, we bury it on farmland. We don't have that luxury anymore, as you well know. We need to mine capacity through recycling. Our region has an excellent, probably industry-leading recycling facility. It's able to divert not only all of the waste that we generate, the recycling, but it's actually taking, as Councillor Woodavine pointed out, materials from Hamilton and Waterloo and other regions that aren't recycling. The point is, we cannot maintain the status quo because the status quo doesn't cut it for our kids, it doesn't cut it for the environment, doesn't cut it for farmland, doesn't cut it for our landfills. We have to change. This change has proven to get the results of diversion. Ultimately, this change is towards diversion. I heard all of those concerns that you raised at the regional council meeting as well. Councillor Woodving has addressed them, but they boil down to waste management, personal waste management and community waste management. There is, I'm just going to say it, I'm going to claim it. There's only one person, and he's not here tonight, but that can claim to produce more garbage per family, because just like everybody else here,
you can as well.
I can do this tonight. But if Councillor Jonker was here, he could actually, outdo me. But the fact of the matter is, the Bylsma household manages its garbage. And this is not a problem for us because it's important for stewardship, important for the environment. So the Bylsma household already doesn't send out a whole container, believe it or not. And we've had diapers up to our armpits in diapers. We know about diapers. And we know about infestations of mice. We have there are ways to manage that as well. So I've heard all of the concerns, as has Councillor Woodving. We've heard them, we've listened. We've also heard Young Greta and a movement being generated by young people who are willing to change. So guess what? The people who are unwilling to change are the old dinosaurs. And that's a reality. I understand, I'm just going to address one point, that some people are going to do better than others. That's what's happening now, and that will continue to happen. And I guess ultimately what we're saying is we're going to proceed in a way that our community standard asks us to do this. And we understand there's going to be changes and adjustments. And it was not an easy decision. But in the end, the majority of the regional councillors, 20-9, I believe, voted in favor of this because it's the right thing to do for our environment, for our agriculture. And we understand there's going to be little issues. But even in the current state, there are issues. So they will be addressed. And in time, we hope to reach the target of 65% diversion rates. That's what the region has set as a target. And I think, Councillor Woodving has answered well. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, but I've been.
You've answered it very, very well, Mr. Mayor, and that's your view on it. But I'm not speaking on behalf of just Ward 1. There's surveys that went out there, and there was surveys that stated that they were not in favor of it, and that's what I'm going through. Yep. It's not about just maintaining Ward 1. That is one of the issues. So when I see surveyors that are stating that they're not in favor of biweekly pickup, those are the numbers I'm going off of.
Yeah.
So
and we understand that.
And like I said, I want to allude that it's not just residents in Ward 1, because I'm quite sure you can find many residents that would be and many residents that wouldn't be. And the other thing too is that I said, Mr. Mayor, is that you went around an answer, and I kind of got it near the end. I feel as myself as councillor that we're a little sandbagged by this decision that came down. We didn't know about it. We have new governance with yourself, Mr. Mayor. The past mayor was doing the same thing. We would be out of the loop. We would be in the dark. And you know what? I thought we were having change. And again, Mr. Councillor Woodving is here once a month. But I think we should have been prepared for our residents when we get the phone calls, instead of picking up the paper and finding out and not knowing what's happened. Because obviously this is something that just didn't happen at the October 17th meeting. This has been in the works, just like every other meeting's happened. It's been in the works. It's been discussions with regional council and regional chair. And for us as council to find out through the paper, I think it's appalling. We dealt with that hidden stuff through the old administration, and it seems like we're down the same track again. Again, Mr. Councillor Woodving, please don't take any offense to this. All due respect, you're only here once a month. But you had every opportunity to let us know ahead of time. but for some reason, things are in the dark. Who knows what else is in the dark? And I'm just not speaking on behalf of all council. I'm speaking as myself. So I wanted to bring those points forward, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to put those comments on the record. Thank you.
So this is not a sandbag, because this is the time to have the discussion. So that discussion unfolded at the region, and we took up a vote. So let me say this. There are things that come up at the region that are presented through a public works process, which I don't sit on, but I can read that all. In the same time that we meet. So the fact that you do get a regional councillor report is part of that process. Yes, you found out in the paper.
You could have let us know on Monday.
I didn't let you know on Monday.
You could have let us know Monday that just passed, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right.
Thank
But this is the time and the place for that.
Which
Which is why Councillor Witteveen is here
you
to
could-
give that presentation.
Absolutely, but that's him. But I'm saying you, as our other regional representative, could have informed council on the Monday this is coming down
Look,
the pipe.
I get it. You have a beef. You have a bone.
No,
to
there's
pick
no
with me.
beef,
You're
Mr.
making
Mayor. I'm just
public.
talking about
It's fine.
it's
okay.
just process,
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
I have Councillor Cody.
I think this whole argument is ridiculous. I mean, I don't know how nobody knew this was coming. We had the Niagara region here 2 months ago, and I left that night understanding that there was a 99% chance we were having bi-weekly garbage pickup.
Thank you, Councillor
So
Cody.
the whole, how this is a surprise to anybody is beyond me. My other issue is I'm disappointed in what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing from our council is that our residents are not responsible enough to adjust to rule changes, so we shouldn't change the rules. It's ridiculous. Like, am I not mistaken that compost and recycling, Mr. Witteveen, will still be picked up every week?
Correct.
So what is there going to be in your garage creating odors? If you're a responsible resident and you're composting and you're recycling, what are you going to have in your garage in your garbage bag? Plastic wrap from packaging, like tags from clothing that you've purchased? I don't understand. So our issue here at council tonight is that our residents aren't responsible enough to adjust to rule changes, so we should be angry that the rules are changing. It's absolutely ridiculous. Anybody who's illegally dumping garbage now will always illegally dump garbage, regardless of the rules. Anybody anybody who refuses to follow the new rules, well, they're not following the rules now. If they're going to burn garbage because it's bi-weekly, then they're burning garbage now. It's the arguments against this are absolutely ridiculous. I have no idea where all the pushback coming from.
Okay. Thank you. And that was part of the discussion. It was vigorous. It was not an easy decision, but it's one that we as leaders need to make. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only thing on this is, like I said, there are very few things that the people in the country feel that they get from the massive amount of tax dollars that go to the region, other than to support a tremendous number of them who work there that are on the sunshine list. But the main thing is something like this, because that's basically, other than roads, garbage is all we feel we get from the region. If something like this was going to come up, as Councillor Cody said, it's going to come down the road, then I think it would have been prudent that we discussed it as a committee and developed what we feel the majority of the democratic process for the township of West Lincoln, and you take that back to the region, representing the decision of this council to the direction we wish you to represent us there. That's the part that didn't happen. If Councillor Cody's correct, and we all think this is crazy and there's nothing wrong with this, you'd have went back saying, Township of West Lincoln endorses it, it's a great idea. But if the comments came back to say, maybe there should be a pilot study on this because we don't believe it's going to be good, the ramifications to the people out in the country are going to be garbage everywhere, this is not a good idea, then you take that back because you are our representative, but we didn't have a chance to voice to you what we as the majority wanted you to say on such an important issue. We got blindsided. And I found out on Channel 11 in the morning, the news, and about 3 or 4 days later I get the paper. That's how I found out.
Let me ask you a question. If this council was split, would our votes have to be split too? Is that like, are we, no, like, at the end of the day.
We just want to be heard.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you very much. I appreciate, sorry, and that's just, I don't want to, we've heard the discussion. We've heard the discussion. We've had the discussion, as Councillor Cody did point out. Some of the other proposals were clear bags, some of the other things that were on the table. With respect to just the numbers, I wanted to just clarify something, because Councilor Rayner, you had a bit of a challenge. The old contract was negotiated for $21 million a year for the previous 5 years, $21 million. This new contract was going to be 36 for the current. Yeah, that's how much it went up, and that had to do with wages, insurances, and the like cost increases. Going bi-weekly saved us $1 million, give or take, 35. Just so you have those numbers. That's it. Let me just say one more caveat. In 7 years, if we're all here, there's more than likely a chance that we'll be changing again. So I'm just going to forewarn you today that in 7 years or in 5 years, when we negotiate a new contract, we will be doing it under stricter guidelines in order to do better. And that's just the reality of what we need to do with the garbage. Hopefully there will come a day where we don't even generate garbage. Everything we produce that we want to discard will be recyclable 100%. But one more comment to you, then to Riley, and then to...
Mr. Mayor, well, I got two questions with regards to that. Was that 36 million based on a number of quotes, and that was the quote you picked? Like, that was based on a number of submission quotes, right?
Councillor,
I'm not going to comment on that.
yeah, like it's part of an RFP process. So there's
Oh,
a whole
it is part of an
procurement.
RFP.
Yeah, there's a whole procurement
Okay,
process.
the other thing is we've had a tremendous amount of problems with the existing
Yes,
company that's doing it. They're out of this now?
that is a interesting question. To answer it simply, yes, but there's some clarity to that because the company that currently serves us is not the main company. You understand that we were pulled out.
Well, it was only a
yeah,
couple
yeah.
weeks ago, I called the township, they gave me the region's number, and I called the region. They had a region person come out, and he said, well, they told us that they picked all the garbage on concession too. I said, well, I just went down my road and they're all there. He had to come down and pick it all up.
Okay, so
I mean, it was
so
crazy.
It's hard to define, but in a word, yes. Your answer. Go ahead, Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll make this brief, and through you, I guess, just to the general. Just to make sure my comments are clear, I think it's important to clarify that. Like, I do think we need to do something. I don't necessarily agree with this approach right now, but to, I guess, address even Councillor Cody's remarks, I know that something was going to come down in some shape, some form. I did not leave that meeting thinking we were going bi-weekly. Otherwise, I would have spoke up a lot more quickly and a little bit more fierce even, because I think at that point that would have made me accept the clear bag as a possible alternative versus I left that actually thinking we were going to be forced clear bag, and that was what I left the meeting thinking, or left that council thinking. So I didn't get the same takeaway as Councillor Cody there, and if that was something I missed, then I apologize. But that's not the impression I got. But again, I think it's important to acknowledge, I think we all can agree that there is more work to be done here. I kind of question the timing of things and considering even, when I say question, I guess to clarify, it's not so much I challenge it, but I'm more curious with the recent federal election and the outcome and the big push being climate change. Is this just a disguise to kind of help cover that, or is it actually for that? Because to me, it looks like it's, if all the downtown core business areas are still going to have the weekly pickups and that, and it's now appears to be like the rural or some more less populated areas are going to go more bi-weekly, then to me it feels like we're getting less while they still get the same status quo. And so, again, and that's not so much a question, it's more just talking out loud. But again, like, I'm not against change by any means, and I just against the idea of how it's being forced versus seeing what other options could be tried and applied. And that's, again, why I speak for why wasn't this piloted by our own? Great that this works over wherever, but who knows how this is going to work here and what extra implications. Have they had where this is done before? Has this been covered over an area that has over 400 square kilometers of land? 800 kilometers of roads. Like, I don't understand how what might work for one area might work for us. So anyways, I'll cut this off now, but
Yep.
just want to make that clear.
I'm going to go to Councillor Gannon, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Trombetta.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, actually, either of you could answer the question. part of the complaint going on around the committee has been garbage. We've been talking about this periodically, the number of people who've been calling about recycling blowing all over and so on. So I wonder if the people at the region who looked into this have also looked into the larger closed lid recycling bins and larger green bins that some of the communities who do pick up biweekly also have. I know, Toronto and Hamilton, Dundas area where our daughter lives, they have very large sealed lid containers, because part of the problem here is that with the winds we've been having and things blowing all over. So I don't know whether that was given any consideration at all, and I'd like to have an answer to that, please.
Through Mr. Chair, to Councillor Gannon, yes, those are concerns in some areas. And I was in a waste management planning steering committee this morning, and the region will be piloting like a lid on a recycling container. There's some areas that are kind of natural wind tunnels, and the recycling kind of blows everywhere. On the large containers, I totally understand. I have a couple of rentals in Guelph, and I have the large containers, and the students use them. The challenge with that to supply, I don't know, I think I'm going to kind of go out there, about 140,000 residents here in Niagara. The cost is considerable. And part of staff's kind of not wanting to spend the money on larger enclosed containers is that by in about 4 years, we're moving into a full producer responsibility of the blue and gray box. So if we make this expense with these containers, the producers, which may create their own version of what are they going to do with the product they're generating, may not want that container. So I know others have taken that plunge. We in 4 years, we're not, I've heard like $3 to $4 million to provide everybody with a container. My solution, as I've done for many years, living on Region Road 12, when every truck drove by, my recycling ended up in the ditch, and I became, I guess, wiser. I placed my recycling in either a clear blue bag or clear bag, and tied it and set it on the side of the road. And I still do that today, because it just seems when it's garbage day, it just seems to be like a 50 or 60 mile an hour wind.
It's always
and
windy.
so, and I understand those challenges, but at the present time, the containers have been looked at. It's just been cost prohibitive to make a full system change to the closed lid. Garbage obviously can be in a closed lid container. The recyclings are the challenge because there's no physical weight.
Well, my thoughts, of course, are as we are increasing the amount of recycling that you expect people to be doing to offset the garbage, then obviously people's bins are heaped now. You can just walk through town, and then you hit one windy day or a delayed pickup, which we've been having everywhere, not just in the country but also in town. Then you have those bins left out overnight, and then you have them all over. So 4 years is a long time if you're really expecting people to buy into this and increase what they're putting out and not be looking at that. So maybe there needs to be, even if there's a cost sharing option for people, it might be worth looking into.
And just so that councillors remember that when the new contractor is selected, it will be October 2020. So yes, we are challenged with this contractor for that time period. But part of the negotiation, if the new contractor can get their equipment, because the challenge is to get 65 garbage trucks ordered and delivered. And if that successful bidder can negotiate a quicker receiving time of that equipment, they will take over that contract at a sooner time. The existing contractor wants out of the contract today. And so this is why we're experiencing difficulties with collection. I strongly believe that once the new contractor is in place, we will go back to our old ways of everything being picked up on time at its proper time, which this contractor did in the first 7 years of its contract. They did pick up our our garbage and our recycling always on a scheduled time. There was very little disruption in our collection service. It's just been when we together have asked them to extend the life of their vehicles, and they've had some labor issues that we've all, I guess, felt the pain of this challenge that they are having in collection.
Councillor Cody?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Whittoveen. It's my understanding that these problems arise from the bidding process, and that we award contracts to the lowest bidder, which typically is a lowball contract, and then it forces them to source their equipment that in a way that may yield inadequate equipment. Is there any discussion as to maybe changing our bidding process and not necessarily always going with the lowest bidder? Like, it's always been my experience that you get what you pay for, and maybe the lowest bidded contract is not the best way to go.
I'd just like to say that generally speaking, that's not necessarily true. Most of these procurements are done through a 2-envelope system. And if you're familiar with that process, there are merits judged in a matrix, by a matrix, and the price is in a second sealed envelope. So you do the judging of the quality, nature, references of a company, and so that you're not tainted by the lowest bidder, you open up the second bid, and each one of these things are weighted. And there's usually an agreed upon weighting system. And so it's too simplistic to say that they just simply go to the lowest bidder. So that they are in the business of procuring large contracts, and they're fully aware that you get what you pay for, which is why a very comprehensive procurement process is put in place. And we do that. We do that even in little old West Lincoln here. We do that from time to time when there's more challenging projects that we enter into as well. And it's a very fair process.
So I've worked in the waste industry. I've driven every type of garbage truck that exists. And I do know that a contractor in the region was having an issue with equipment, bending frames, and it created a truck issue. Do we lay down any stipulations when awarding a contract as to quality of equipment, et cetera, et cetera?
To you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cody, the only thing that's required is looking at efficiencies of emissions of new commercial stock. So that's the only requirement. It's up to the successful contractor to have the right truck, basically with the right equipment to do the job. And in response to your earlier question, yes, the region has learned from the past, and part of the contract is also to pay a living wage, and also to secure, I believe it's somewhere between 75 and 80% full-time employees. Where they run into problems is where they run into hiring temporary employees, which are the gaps of the system. So definitely we learn as we progress, and as Mayor Bosma stated, how the process, so it's a performance, it's ability, it's living wage. There's some new things in this contract that we've learned from our from the past, and all things considered, the last contract which I was involved, we did save taxpayers $14 million through a 7-year period. So now we're just dealing with a few glitches, and the sky's falling. But people forget that we got a service, and the decision saved taxpayers $14 million. That seems to not be known out there. But I think we made the best decision of the day at that time, and today we are making the best decision with the information we have today.
Councillor Trombetta?
Mayor? Yeah, just to avoid going back, because I have an item on the agenda for this, just get it over with now and not to go back to it. I think that would probably appease the council as well, right? Councilor Cody mentioned there was a 99% or 90% percent discussion that this was happening. I don't recall that ever, those numbers or those figures coming forward. I knew that there was going to be changes, but that was never at that meeting, because I think we would have had a lot more questions. You know, but, you know, he has his opinion. I have mine. Sounds like Councillor Riley is neutral right now, and Councillor Rayner has some, you know, his ideas. You have yours, and Councillor Ganaan has yours. But I think what I wanted as a council is just to have that discussion before you went to the region. So hopefully in the future, maybe when something that's going to affect the whole municipality gravely, I guess, in some senses, and it might be better for the municipality. At least we could have a little bit of discussion as council prior it going to region. Maybe get our voices through to you, Mr. Mayor, and maybe brought to Councillor Witteveen, and then you can still vote the same way you want. That's your choice. That's your democratic right to vote the way you are. But at least we could feel that we got our points across to you, Mr. Mayor, before the vote took place, and hope to see that in the future when it really affects the municipality. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Really? Okay.
I just
Councillor Cody.
think it's important to point out that we did have the region here speaking to us, and any one of us around this horseshoe have the ability to put a motion in the agenda to bring this up for conversation so we could discuss it. It's not, I don't know why it's falling solely on the mayor to, we're all equal parts of this council. Any of us could have initiated that conversation at any council meeting. We could, you can easily have a motion put in the agenda.
The changes weren't brought forward to us, what was happening in that
Well, no, but we
meeting.
knew we were having changes. Any one of us could have then initiated after the Niagara region was here and sat and had a talk with us about changes. If we were so concerned about changes to our garbage system,
But I think
any one of us could have initiated a conversation as to what would be best for our
Okay, so
municipality.
I just want to banter back and forth through the chair, yeah?
Through you, Mr. Chair, but I do recall that she didn't even know what the exact changes were either.
Well, okay, so therein lies some of the challenges. We had a presentation.
Correct. The presentation, if you want my honest opinion, the presentation gave us nothing.
No, but
It gave us some indication, but it didn't give us any indication.
at the end of the day, Councillor Witteveen and I made a decision as the elected representatives of
Correct.
of the community,
Correct.
based on the best information that we had at hand, based on the environment that we see around us and the mindset of the people. And you're right, absolutely right. There may come a day of reckoning for this mayor or that regional councillor or for each one of us for the way that we vote and the way that we have led this community. We live in that reality all the time. So I understand that, you know, and you've made your points very, very clear, and it's valid. The region is proceeding with this mandate to work out the fine details and to negotiate this contract so that we can get out of this transitional period, which is sometimes hard to work through. The final thing that I wanted to just state, and this is for the purposes of the CAO, it's very important that we track data. So, in the upcoming months and in the upcoming season, and the region does this as well, if you have issues with garbage dumping, that you send a note to the CAO, that everything works through, because the municipality issues tickets, which is a fancy word for saying they track this with a paper trail. And data is the best way to make adjustments as we see fit. So hearsay is a very poor way to track the issues, challenges, or the good things that are happening with this. So I just as a follow through, you know, forward your concerns onto the CAO, to myself, if there's illegal dumping, forward them to the CAO, so that we get that paper trail and we can start to track some of these things. And you'd be surprised what kind of data, what kind of landscape starts to emerge when you track data. And this is no different than the way that we deal with, quote unquote, a rat infestation. There's some funny stories about when you actually track the data of a rat infestation and other like things. So data is very, very important. Make sure that you let the CAO know so that she can write a ticket.
Okay.
All right. And
Thank
I
you,
think
Mr. Mayor.
that's
I think that gives up all the comments I wanted to make, and when it comes down to that later on the agenda, I don't need to discuss that.
Thank you very
Anymore.
much. All right.
Thank you,
Counselor,
Whittleby.
the seat didn't burn up under you.
Okay, thank you.
We have council minutes, 9A, September 23rd. Councillor Cody, you have a resolution.
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ganon that the minutes of the September 23rd, 2019 regular council meeting be accepted.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Cody, seconded by Councillor Ganan. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Look at that, eh? I think that's all we do. Good. Okay. We have the council minutes for the special. Councillor Ganan, you have that resolution?
I do, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cody that the minutes of the October 8th, 2019 special council meeting be accepted.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Ganan, seconded by Councillor Cody. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. C, public meeting under the Planning Act. Councillor Riley, you have that resolution.
I do, Mr. Mayor. That the minutes of the public meeting held on October 15, 2019 under Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to one zoning bylaw amendment, Garrett Burima and Nicole Ravensbergen, file number 1601-014-19 be accepted. Oh, sorry, and that was moved by myself and second by Councillor Drametta.
Moved by them. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. There's a road naming public meeting. Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley that the minutes of the public meeting held on October the 15th, 2019 with respect to the naming of the street for Thompson Street Avenue Road be accepted.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Rayner and seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. We're moving on to communications. There's a communication there for your information from the Green and Gainham family. I'll speak just briefly to that a little bit in a few seconds. And at this time, we have the mayor's remarks. I'd just like to make a few on my doings in the past month. On October the 4th in the morning, I had the opportunity to go to St. Catherine's Club Roma and enjoy, believe it or not, a very mind-blowing presentation on homelessness. And homelessness is one of those kind of, unfortunately to say it, motherhood and apple pie kind of challenges that we face in all of our communities. But there was some fresh thinking. A presenter came who is kind of doing a rethink on some of the views and some of the issues surrounding homelessness. I attended alongside CAO as well, and we found the presentation to be very informative, and I think that there's a strong appetite for the region to adopt some of these principles that were presented with respect to homelessness. Suffice it to say that our own Mayor Jim Diodati from Niagara Falls, who's been around for a long time and heard all kinds of presentations, said for the first time he feels hope in solving homelessness. And so I think that was very important. I'm very glad that I went. And so it's one of the other regional initiatives to reboot, public health and long-term care and homelessness. So very encouraged by that. In the evening of that day, there was a soiree held at the Megalomaniac Winery in Vineland. It was a soiree to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the West Lincoln Memorial Auxiliary. And it was an enjoyable evening Again, of course, there are always concerns regarding the hospital, but this was an evening of celebration for the auxiliary. October the 5th, I had the honor and privilege to attend the internment for Mr. Jim Green, who was our town crier, and I was greatly welcomed by the family, and they responded with their kind letter to the council, and asked that I hope you read it, and felt their gratitude. They felt that their father was honored by this community, and we appreciated his work here. In the evening of that day, October the 5th, I attended a PTSD gala for those first responders in fire, ambulance, and police. PTSD, of course, is an ongoing challenge. Again, part of a climate and environment that we live in, that we're gaining new understanding with respect to mental health. I found the evening also to be very informative and enjoyable. Stay tuned. There are big things happening. West Lincoln's going to be taking a part in that, hopefully, as well. And so, Councillor Trombetta, consider this a bit of an early warning on some exciting things with respect to mental health and PTSD in the region and our role. October the 22nd, I had a fun morning. Councillor Riley was there reading to nursery school aged, I don't know, young kids with moms, the moms reading class. It was a library week. I announced earlier that I would be attending. I did attend. I wasn't drooled on. It was very well received. MPP Sam Osterhoff was also there, and we had an opportunity to read a couple of kids' books. I will say this, of the half dozen, maybe 8 books that they gave us, it was kind of rare to find one that didn't have some dark theme to it. So we found the lightest ones possible and read those, but I don't know, maybe we're scaring our kids, whatever. But we did enjoy the morning. And on the 24th, I'm not going to steal all of Councillor Ganan's thunder to say that I participated in the Age-Friendly Network. Age-Friendly Network. Councillor Ganan's probably going to speak to that later, so I'll let her speak further to that. And then in the evening, the NPCA hosted their third of a 4-round public information evening with respect to the Welland River watershed, floodplain mapping, and it was a very informative evening, and those people who attended and spoke to me afterward said that they found it to be a great download of information, helpful to understanding the way that our the Welland River floods, and the way that we have to protect life and property. With respect to that, there is another opportunity on Tuesday at the Abingdon Hall, 6 to 8. The NPCA is doing its 4th and final public information session at the Abingdon Hall on Tuesday, the 29th. So I just wanted to highlight that. And those conclude my comments for this council meeting. Any comments or questions? Good. Councillor Ganan, you have a resolution from the Planning, Building, Environmental Committee.
I do, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have several, actually. Do they go consecutively, Madam Clerk? Okay, so I'll do the first one and then we'll go from there. Okay, so thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cody that the minutes of the open session portion of the October 15th, 2019 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted, and the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exception of item number P100-19, P103-19, P108-19, and P110-19, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the October 15th, 2019 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Ganan and seconded by Councillor Cody. Okay, there are amendments to this. Councillor Ganan, you have an amendment to this resolution?
I do. I do. So moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cody that the October 15, 2019 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee minutes be amended to replace the subject titles for items P107-19, P108-19, P109-19 as follows. P107-19, re 2634331 Ontario Inc., Avertex Utility Solutions, Industrial Park Road south of Pearson Street, unopened road allowance, site plan agreement and authorizing bylaw file number 2100-012-18. P108-19, Seacard Holiday Campers Limited, 7568 Regional Road 20, site plan agreement and authorizing bylaw file number 2100-014-19. And P109-19, Fred and Joyce Bosher, 2942 and 2946, Regional Road 12, Grimsby Road, Site Plan Agreement and Authorizing Bylaw, file number 2100-015-19, and that Councillor Christopher Cody be removed from a recorded vote under item P110-19, as he was not in attendance at the October 15, 2019 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting.
So these are a couple of housekeeping items that the clerk was able to identify on this amendment that's before us. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? And that's carried. The amendment's carried. So we have an amended motion from Councillor Gannan. Any discussion on the amended motion with those that housekeeping? And yeah, go ahead.
There is 4 items that have been pulled from those minutes, which are items
100-19, 103-19, 108-19, and 110-19. So those are the ones that will come up. So this is on this allows those people who had conflict of interest to vote on this, and the remainders will follow up afterwards. Clerk is nodding. Yes, Councillor Rayner.
Except there was no mention of P103-4.
Yes.
It is. Sorry, it is here. It 4 is in brackets. So yes.
Oh, because I got 103-4 in brackets 19. So you just
Yes.
said 19. Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
it's the same one.
Yeah, same one. So you'll be able to vote on this one, and then we'll follow up with the various conflicts. All right, is that understood? So on this motion, with the exceptions that are for the conflict, all those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, now we're going to get through those conflicts. Who has? Council Riley. Yep.
I have P100-119.
Perfect, yeah.
Okay. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rayner, that item P100-19 from October 15, 2019, Planning, Building, Environmental Committee minutes be and is hereby approved. In bracket again, I think that, okay, item P100-19, Township Solicitor Sarah Premi and CAO Bev Hendry, Solicitor Client Advice, Legal Matter, LPAT Appeal, Application for Rezoning, the committee rose without reporting.
And this is the one that Councillor Trombetta had.
Yes.
This is your conflict. Any comments or questions? Moved by Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Rayner. All those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Trombetta did not participate. Councillor Gannan, you have one?
I do, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cody that item P110-19 from the October 15, 2019 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee minutes be and is hereby approved. Item P110-19, that report PD-118-19 regarding recommendation report, Smithville Urban Boundary Expansion Study, hiring of consultants teams dated October 15, 2019 be received, and that a contract be entered with ACOM and their consulting team to complete the master community plan work, and that a contract be assigned with Wood AMAC and their consulting team to complete the sub-watershed study work, and that a bylaw be passed to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign both contracts in accordance with the timeline noted in 2 and 3 above.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Gannan, seconded by Councillor Cody. This was the one that it's the urban boundary one, so this is the one that Councillor Rayner wanted to pull.
And recorded vote.
And the record, and so, so this is for the recorded vote. So we're going to do a recorded vote on this. Yeah. So I'm going to hand this over to you.
Well,
and you-
actually, I do it now on my computer.
Okay, so the clerk.
I don't know if Councillor Rayner wanted to speak.
Councillor Rayner, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I'd like to speak on
That's correct.
Just a few comments, if I may. Yes. Everybody knows my passion for agriculture, and it started way back in my schooling years when I spent 4 years at Guelph getting a degree in agriculture. My love for agriculture has always been there, and when I see the expansion taking out productive agricultural land, it really bothers me. It bothers me like people feel with climate change, that they say it's coming, and then all of a sudden, the last little while, everybody's on the bandwagon that yes, it is arriving. I feel kind of the same way. We have a number of people here that attend fall fairs. Those are agricultural fairs. There's where the farmer has an opportunity to show the people who really don't know much about farming what it's all about. And when they go, they have a good time. They get to see sheep and chickens and horses and cattle. And right now the Royal's coming, the biggest thing in Ontario, and it's always been a phenomenal thing to go to. That starts November 1st to November 10th. You're going to see the best of dairy cattle there and horses and everything, and it's something that the agricultural area is very proud of. Even in the speech tonight and what Councillor Witteveen was talking about, he mentioned that recognizing the strength of the agriculture in this area. And to me, it's just very important that we respect the agriculture and realize how important it is, not only because it's the mainstay of this township, but it's also the bread and butter of human survival. The fields that are in question right now are in soybean, and being a dairyman for many years, I can tell you that there is a milk out now called soy milk. It's been out for quite a while, used with soybean. I have a daughter who's a vegetarian. She has a soy burger. In fact, there's a company starting out in the U.S. expected to make billions that they're changing from meat in Hamburg to plant origin food. So the trend is going there. And if it's not used for that, it's used for animal feed, for cattle and for chickens and stuff, which ends up for human consumption. So agricultural land is very important. And the thing that was unique about this township was the fact that most cities and towns, they don't have a mission statement that reflects their concern and appreciation for agriculture. And this township does. It clearly states that we want to maintain the values of our heritage and preserve our natural resources. So our mission statement clearly states that we appreciate and we understand and we respect agriculture. So when we decide to take some of this land out, we kind of go against our values. We go against the principles that we outlined that were important to us that other municipalities usually don't even care of. If you look at the slaughtering of land in Hamilton, it's just amazing how much land goes under because they don't care. But this township had a mission statement, and the values of this township are known throughout the region, that West Lincoln is an agricultural community. So when we start to take that away, we kind of go against our values, hypocritical, don't do as I do as I say. And that kind of bothers me. And I know that the vast majority of the people who sit around the horseshoe don't come from an agricultural, and consequently they don't have the love that I have for the land. But it is important to recognize the fact that that land is an important part of the food chain, and you have to respect it because once it's taken over by the developers, it can never come back. So you have to be very careful what you do, and if you are going to do it, you pick the worst land. You don't pick the best land, but unfortunately in a lot of cases, the best land is located in the most convenient spot for the plan of the urban boundary expansion. So unfortunately, due to the fact that it's at the wrong place, a lot of times it's the best land that goes. And a perfect example of that is the QEW to Niagara. It used to be all orchards. In fact, about 15 years ago when I was Director of Farm Operations for E.D. Smith, the largest pick-your-own operation in Canada, we had over 12,000 sweet cherry trees, 8,000 dwarf apples, 200,000 strawberry plants. I used to go to Grimsby and meet with some of the growers that had their own pick-your-own operations there, and we talk about their different varieties and the land and everything else. Every single one of them are now a subdivision. And it just bothers me when you see beautiful land like that being destroyed for the sake of development. So we got to think, we got to be careful. That's why I wanted to record a vote on that. It's my love, it's my passion. I realize most people around here don't appreciate or don't understand that, and they're making a decision based on the interest of progress. But in many cases, progress is not really, if it's not looked at properly, a positive thing. It could end up being a detrimental thing, such as climate change. This will come back in centuries from now to haunt people when they're taking the best land out of production, but it's not going to happen now. But climate change didn't happen yesterday either. It took many, many years to happen. That's all I have to say. I ask for a recorded vote.
Yep, thank you, and we've been very patient to listen to your concerns, and we will take up that recorded vote now, unless anybody else wants to say anything. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Councillor Rayner?
Not in favor.
Councillor Cody?
Support.
Councillor Gann? Councillor Riley?
Support.
Councillor Trombetta?
Support.
One, two, three, four to one. Oh, sorry, Mayor.
Yep,
You're not on my list. Sorry.
no problem. I'm
Sorry.
okay. Then that is carried. Okay, and then we have, I apologize, I wasn't doing this in order, so Madam Clerk, just bear with me. I see Councillor Trombetta, you have a resolution 103-19-4, which is Councillor Rayner's.
Yes, thank you,
Conflict?
Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Riley that item P 103-19, Section 4, from the October 15, 2019 Planning, Building, and Environmental Committee meeting minutes be and hereby approved. Item P 103-19, Section 4, that report PD 162-19 regarding information report, update on the engagement of Richard Van Zan as project manager for the Urban Boundary Expansion Project dated October 15, 2019, be received for information purposes only.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Trombetta, seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
I think Councillor Rayner wanted a recorded vote, I believe.
Didn't we do it?
Did you want a recorded vote on this one too? It's the same. Okay, yeah. Then that was carried. And if I'm correct, Councillor Cody, you have the last one.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gannon that item P108-19 from October 15th, 2019 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee minutes be and is hereby approved. Item P108-19, 1, that report PD 158-19 regarding Sicard Holiday Campers Limited, 7568 Regional Road 20, site plan agreement and authorizing bylaw file number 2100-014-19 dated October 15th, 2019 be received, and 2, that a bylaw be passed to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the site plan agreement.
Okay, and again, this one was pulled for the purposes of Councillor Rayner to conflict. Okay, and any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried, and it should be noted that Councillor Rayner did not vote. All right, Madam Clerk, I think we got them all. Yes, all right. Then we have an Administration Finance Committee minutes, October 21. Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Trombetta that the minutes of the Administration Finance Fire Committee meeting held on October 21st, 2019 be accepted, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exceptions of item numbers, and there are none at this time.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Rayner, seconded by Councillor Trombetta. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Trombetta, you have a resolution for Public Works, October 21st.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Rayner, that the minutes of the Public Work, Recreation, and Arena Committee meeting held on October 21st, 2019 be accepted, and the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exemptions of item numbers, and there are none.
Councillors, you heard the resolution moved by Councillor Trombetta and seconded by Councillor Rayner. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Excellent. Number 13 is reconsideration. 14, notice of motion to rescind. Other business. Number 15, Director of Planning, Building, Brian Treble, and Enforcement Officer Tiana Dominic. Recommendation report, PD 172-19, parking prohibition for recreational vehicles, amends parking bylaw 89-2000, and administrative penalty bylaw 2014-74. Councillor Riley, you have that resolution.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Trombetta, that report PD-172-19 regarding the parking prohibition, oh my goodness, I can't even speak. Prohibition, geez. Parking prohibition for recreational vehicles dated October 28, 2019 be received for information, and that the bylaw attach a Schedule A to this report, which will provide an enforcement mechanism for the prohibition of the parking of recreational vehicles on residential lots in the Township of West Lincoln from November 1st to April 30th be and is hereby approved, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign said bylaw.
You've heard the resolution by Councillor Riley. Please sign that. Councillor Riley, can you just please sign that for me?
Oh, I don't know if I signed any of them before.
That's why I noticed that one's,
Really?
yeah, good. I know your signature. All right, it's okay, it's okay. Moved by Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Trombetta. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. We have a Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble. It's a memo appointment of Deputy Chief Building Official John Schonewill. Well, sorry, I said that the Dutch way. He might have a more anglicized way of saying that last name, but that memo is for your information. Any comments or questions for the Director? Seeing none. We bypass the next one. Council remarks. Member Cody. Sorry,
I have
Councillor Cody.
no remarks at this time.
Councillor Ganan.
Of course I do, thank you. Just a couple of things. One, I was also at the October 4th Soiree de Van, which was a pretty nice event. John and I attended as well. It also was a fundraiser for as well as a celebration, it was also a fundraiser. And I think they did quite well at that as well. Speaking of fundraisers, the Fair Board held their Oktoberfest on Saturday night. It was a fundraiser for the West Niagara Fair Board, but it also was a thank you to their volunteers. And it was very well attended. Lots and lots of people in spite of the nasty weather on Saturday night. And Thursday past, as the mayor alluded to, was our chance to host the Age-Friendly Niagara Network. We had 52 people in attendance. Councillor Riley and the mayor, as I mentioned, were there for a short while and taking part in the discussion. I think there was a lot of worthwhile discussion. Thanks to Wendy and Bob and their staff for help setting up. Thanks to Jackie, who most of you know, who was very instrumental in helping me to get it organized and order the food and so on. But I would like to pass on to our council and staff how very much people loved our new facility, felt welcomed in West Lincoln, and very much enjoyed sort of part of being there. So. And then the last thing I think is just to mention coming up that the Legion is hosting a very special pasta dinner. John and I did attend last year. This year, Councillor Riley is going. The mayor's not able. I'm not able to go in his place, and so Councillor Riley is going. But it is to support Jillian's Place, which is attached to the Old Women's Place, which is a shelter for women who have to leave their homes. So it's a wonderful fundraiser. So if you're able to stop by for a bit of pasta on Friday night at the Legion, I'm sure they'd be happy to have you. Thanks.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few things. As I already mentioned, I got a chance to go out to the Age-Friendly networking event there. I just wanted to make one comment. I don't think Councillor Ganan gets enough credit for all that she's involved with in representing our community. And I think the whole time you and I both were there, she was moving the whole time there. So thank you, Councillor Ganan, for being instrumental in so many other things, especially that particular group there. Outside of that, yes, you've already beat me to the punch with. I was going to bring up the library week there, and got the privilege of listening to you read the books there. My daughter and I were in attendance, and she enjoyed herself, and I think what kind of helped Mr. Mayor as he was reading the story, he'd really kind of give side engagement with I actually can't remember the story you read. I actually remember Sam's a little better, but I know I remember making the little side comments about the story, trying to get the kids involved. So I thought that was really.
Looks like my dad.
That's right. Yeah, the moms were having a good time. Anyways. And outside of that, I did want to give a report back. Last week I mentioned about us trying to get the Niagara Road 12 landfill committee there. We've been trying to get a schedule, or get everyone's schedules together to meet, so we finally were able to do so. Actually, just I guess it was the day after, I guess it was the Wednesday on the 16th. So a couple little notes I thought I would mention. During their compost giveaway, they were able to give away about 4,000 bags of compost, so we thought that was pretty successful. Ended up donating approximately 1,000 kilograms of food, which was donated to some local sites. Approximately $1,500 in cash of donations were collected as well. I remember I believe they did, I don't have it in my notes here, so I'm going to go off memory here, but I think they ended up earning approximately $650 for West Lincoln Community Care through their bottle drive. So I don't, maybe don't quote me on this, but somewhere along the lines, either they collect the bottles and took it, or they gave the bottles to the community care and then they got the deposit. So I know they're doing some good stuff there. As well, I thought it was something worth noting. I'm sure many people know, but I know it was kind of refreshing to hear again. But when it comes to, as we heard tonight, even dealing with different ideas of how to reduce our waste or recycle stuff, one of the things that came up during that meeting was, what do you do with an old mattress? And as we're trying to look at what the province is going to push back and making producers responsible for it, the one thing that they come out is that if you do have an old mattress, you can contact the place that you purchased it from, and in most situations they'll actually come and collect it or give you a place where you can actually dispose of it, so you're not throwing it in a ditch or you're not feeling like you have to go and drive all the way to the landfill to dispose of it yourself. They will actually come and collect that for you. Yeah, and so other than that, I believe that's, I'll keep this short. I think those are just some noteworthy things to mention. So, that's all.
Councillor Trombetta? Councillor Rayner? Good. Madam CEO?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Since you've given me the opportunity, I'll just remind you about some of the strategic planning events that are coming up. The business consultation session is this Wednesday morning from 9 till 11, and the public consultation and public engagement initiatives that we've set up are tomorrow night at the Western Community Center from 6:30 to 8:30, and Saturday morning from 9 until 11 a.m. at the Wellandport Home Hardware, and noon to 2 p.m. On Saturday as well at the Casterville Library.
Thank you for that. New items of business. Are there any members of council that have a new item of business they'd like to introduce? Seeing none. Councillor Cody, you have the resolutions for bylaws.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ganon, that leave be granted to introduce bylaws 2019-19, 2019-92, 2019-93, 2019-94, 2019-95, 2019-96, 2019-97, 2019-98, 2019-99, 2019-100, 2019-101, 2019-102, 2019-103, 2019-104, 2019-105, 2019-106, and 2019-107, that the same shall be considered to have been read at first, second, and third with one reading and are hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
Councillors, you've heard the bylaws read out, and I believe the clerk is going to speak at this time.
So we need to vote on bylaw 2019-96 separately.
Yep.
And as well as 2019-104, due to Councillor Rayner's conflict on that item. And I believe Councillor Rayner wanted the bylaw for the urban boundary to also be extracted and voted on separately.
Okay, so one was pulled for a conflict, one was pulled for a recorded vote. So 106, I've noted them in here as being pulled. So on the balance, any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And then let the clerk just get a couple signatures on there, and we'll deal with them separately. One is a conflict, and one of them is going to be a recorded vote. Whoever moves it can read it. Okay, Councillor Riley, go ahead.
So I'm going to start with 2019-96, sorry. So moved by myself, second by Councillor Trombetta, that leave be granted to introduce bylaw 2019-96, and that the same shall be considered to be read a first, second, and third with one reading and are hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto, any rule of this council to be the contrary notwithstanding.
Is this the conference one? Recorded vote one? Okay, so I'm going to hand this over to the, any comments or questions? I'm going to hand this over to the clerk to do the recorded vote. Oh, she doesn't have her computer. You going to do it?
I don't have it ready.
Okay, no problem. When you're-
Okay, Councillor Rayner.
Do not support.
Councillor Cody.
Support.
Councillor Gann. Support. Councillor Riley.
Support.
Councillor Trombetta. Support. Mayor Boswell.
Support. And that's carried. And then, Councillor Riley, you have the last bylaw there.
That is correct, sir. All right. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Trombetta, that leave be granted to introduce bylaw 2019-104, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, and third with one reading and are hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Trombetta. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried, and it should be noted that Councillor Rayner did not participate. Then with that, there are no confidential matters, and I declare this meeting adjourned at the hour of 8:42. Thank you very much.